I got some ABC type information for you, lady. I was state raised, and this is a dead place. A child in 8x4 green walls. After a while, you tell the walls, my life is yours. Did you grow up in the suburbs?
Yes.
Right. What are you looking at? Huh?
Thief is a film that came out in 1981 that's written and directed by Michael Mann. So Thief is actually a $20 Criterion patron pick from The Oncoming Storm, and a lot like the page requests that I've gotten from The Oncoming Storm, this film is an overlooked gem from the 80s. I mean, I guess I can't say with any real objectivity that Thief is an overlooked film, but I've personally never heard it ever come up in film conversation, and I think The Oncoming Storm is here to change that. Two previous films that I've reviewed before that's been requested by The Oncoming Storm include The Long Good Friday and To Live and Die in LA, and now Thief, and all three of these films just radiate badass 80s atmosphere. An incredibly important thing to know about all three of these films, and obviously especially with Thief, is that they're all absolutely drenched with 80s style. And if you're somebody who genuinely just can't get into that 80s sound and style, I don't really see you enjoying this film as much as everybody else that really likes it. Because even though I personally really dug Thief and think it's an awesome movie, I completely understand why there will be many people out there that watch this film and just think it's kind of corny and cheesy. And a lot of that is mostly due to the score in this film, because the score in this film is composed by Tangerine Dream, and they've composed one of the most overtly 80s synthwave sounding scores that I've ever heard in a film. Again, it's very reminiscent to the score in To Live and Die in LA and also The Long Good Friday, and it's just so blaringly in your face. But to me, I pretty much loved every second of it. Like, I don't know what it is about that 80s synthwave score, but something about it just hits different, and I really couldn't get enough of it. I just think it's really atmospheric and very immersive and just a lot of fun. And the aesthetic craft of this film in general is one of the biggest reasons why this film resonated with me quite a bit, because the director Michael Mann and his cinematographer Donald Thorin, they just go all in presenting this incredibly vibrant nighttime city life that's filled with all kinds of neon colors, mostly a lot of greens and a lot of blues and purples. And there are just so many different shots in this film and a lot of different segments, especially with the opening sequence in this film that is just absolutely glowing with that neon vibrance. And again, in combination with that electrifying 80s synthwave score, the aesthetic value and atmosphere to this film is just mwah, just creme de la creme cinema. And I do understand that this kind of inherently makes it not the most timeless piece of art, because it is most certainly reflecting a specific stylistic era of filmmaking. But I still feel like films like this should definitely be admired and appreciated, especially through like a more time capsule sense of perspective. And also how influential that this style of filmmaking has been for future films. Honestly, I couldn't get Drive out of my head when I was watching this film. Not only is it because of like the aesthetic and the score and everything, but also just like in terms of character and narrative. I felt like there were a lot of similarities, especially with the ending to this film, which obviously I really dug the ending. I thought the ending was awesome. Not only do I just love the final shot in terms of the framing of the camera work, but just narratively speaking, I think it's just a really cool and badass moment. And also there's a song that plays during the final 5 minutes of this film and continues to play throughout the ending credits. And that song reminded me so much of Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb. And after doing further research, I learned that the songwriter was actually influenced by Comfortably Numb, and I'm glad that he just came out and said that, because it sounded way too much alike. But even on top of the direction and the entire aesthetic value, I think that there are plenty of other aspects of this film that are worth appreciating. I mean, even from a character writing standpoint, James Caan in this film, which by the way, I mean, rest in peace, James Caan. I mean, I'm glad he lived a pretty long life. He was in his 80s, but it's still never easy to see such talented people leave us. And honestly, I haven't really seen a lot of James Caan's films. I've only seen The Godfather, Misery, and also Elf, which he plays Will Ferrell's dad. So definitely let me know in the comments section what you think is the next lead performance from James Caan film that I should check out, because I really don't know where to start. And I really loved his character in this film because, yes, even though he's a criminal, this film gives him a lot of depth and nuance. Not in terms of showing you how great he is at what he does, but also showing that he has some sincere personality traits and motivations for what he's doing. We get this incredible diner scene that happens about 25 or 30 minutes into the film. And I was a little worried when that scene was about to present itself, because it's a scene that on the surface is attempting to establish a romantic dynamic. And sometimes when films try to bring romance into the mix, a lot of the times it can feel forced and just unnatural and just there for, marketing purposes. But here it doesn't feel that way at all. Here they use the romance in a way to not only, give some nuance to the female role there, but also, give a lot of insight to James Caan's motivations and, where he is internally. He has a monologue in that scene, and I think it's incredible. Not only because I think his performance is really impressive, but just from a writing standpoint, it's a crucial moment for his character in terms of how he's putting his vulnerability out there and, allowing somebody else, a stranger, and shares details about a traumatic event that is incredibly difficult for a person to say, and especially in this regards for a man to say. And, not only, again, does it show that he has a softness to his character, but at the same time, it was able to demonstrate how he developed the mentality that he currently has, which in a nutshell is basically the mentality of not ever allowing yourself to be owned by anything or anyone. And the only entity that's ever going to dictate his own life is himself. And I love how that character trait is further employed in the third act of the film into the ending. There's also a nice handful of many other memorable moments in this film. For instance, there's a scene that takes place at an adoption center, and not only does that scene also contain, an angry performance from James Caan, but I think it's an excellent scene that kind of expresses the problematic way we go about determining who can be adoptive parents. Like, I understand that you have to have, a strict criteria in determining who you want to give children up to, but at the same time, how strict should it be to the point where you're depriving so many children to have potentially great families? And I love how James Caan's character in that scene also points out that the woman that gets to decide whether or not they can adopt a child is from the suburbs. It just goes to show you that some authority figures in these establishments have no idea what it's like to not have a family. And the big heist scene that this film builds up to at the end of the second act, I think is excellent. And I think it's excellent for a lot of different reasons, but one thing that I really enjoyed and appreciated about the heist scenes is that I feel like in terms of the pace and in terms of how it's kind of showcasing this, I feel like it's presenting it in a really natural and realistic way, because nothing about it feels rushed. Like, there's a lot of times when you watch heist movies and, you get through a lot of the dirty work really quick. Here, it really takes its time and makes sure that the audience feels every second of this, and not only does it make it more suspenseful, but yeah, as I mentioned, it just feels a lot more natural and believable. And also another thing that I really liked about the big heist scene in this film, and I guess I'm kind of wandering into spoilerish territory, so I'll put a little caption above, but in the big heist scene in this film, I love that this film didn't insert a huge conflict that happens. The entire big heist in this film goes incredibly smoothly. And, that's a testament to the main character on how great he is at his job and also his partner. But it's also just an excellent subversion of expectation, because every single heist film that I've seen, there's always something that goes wrong. And in this film, that's just not the case. Everybody does their job the best way they can, and they get away with it. I made the heist sequence feel original and unpredictable, and I really appreciated it for that. The true conflict doesn't really come up until later, where he has an interaction with the mob boss played by Robert Prosky, which, by the way, Robert Prosky is excellent in this film. I know I've seen him in other films, I just can't name him off the top of my head, but he was excellent here. He's very intimidating, and, he has an interaction with James Caan's character in basically the last 10 or 15 minutes of this film, and he has his own monologue, and he knocks it out of the park as well. Again, very intimidating character, and he had to allow a lot of disgusting words to come out of his mouth, and he delivered all that beautifully. In terms of criticisms, I do have to say that there is a decent stretch in the second act building up to the big heist at the end of the second act, where I feel like things that occur between that time aren't that interesting, and the film feels like it's slowing down a bit. And also, again, this really isn't a timeless film. I mean, I don't expect every film to be timeless, but this is a film that is stuck in an era, and even though I personally just dug the hell out of it, I can reasonably see why there are a number of people who may not be so into this style. But obviously, I still really love this film. There's so much about it that I admired and just had so much fun with. So I'm going to give Thief a solid 8 out of 10. That's all I gotta say about Thief. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, just give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.